welcome everyone to this webinar on driving strategic sustainability using sustainable products portfolio, a practical approach, which is brought to you by PwC-ESG Research and Innovation Forum at IIMA, with experts from Syensqo and World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Now, with that, if I could request my team to put up the presentation, please.
Hi, Sandeep. While the presentation is getting live, maybe we can have a very quick round of introductions from the speakers. Just 30 seconds each, maybe.
Yes, Professor. I'll start with mine. So I'm Sandeep. I'm a partner with PwC. I focus on sustainability strategy and climate as a practice. Being associated in this space and with PwC for more than 1.5 decades, and looking to participate in this webinar with my esteemed colleagues across the world. So with that, I will request if we can have a quick introduction from Anne.
Thank you, Sandeep. Anne-Laure Brison. I lead all the activity related to chemicals in WBCSD, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and that includes portfolio sustainability assessment. Nice to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Anne. And if I could now request Bruno.
Yes, hello everyone, and thanks again for the invitation. So my name is Bruno Van Parys. I'm based in Brussels. I've made most of my career at Solvay as a business manager, and I joined corporate sustainable development team 8 years ago in a division that is called Sustainability Business Partner, but specifically in charge of sustainable portfolio management. And this is why I'm here today. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Bruno. And last but not the least, if I could request Professor Anish to quickly share his introduction.
Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Anne and Bruno, for agreeing to join this webinar today. My name is Anish Sugathan. I am a faculty of the strategy area here at IIM Ahmedabad. I teach business strategy, corporate sustainability, with a keen interest in corporate governance. I'm looking forward to the good conversations today on sustainable product portfolio management. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Professor Anish. If I could now request my colleagues to put up the presentation. Thank you. So, in fact, just this month, PwC here at PwC, we in fact closed our Global Consumer Insight Pulse survey. In this survey, we reach out to consumers across, including last year, for example, we did about 8,000 to 9,000 consumer surveys in India to try and understand that how the consumer ecosystem is shaping up, what is it that they require, how their buying trends are becoming different, and so on and so forth. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, I think since post-COVID-19 pandemic, we do see consumer preferences shifting. In fact, this year, about 85% of respondents said that they have actually experienced firsthand disruptive effects of climate change in their daily lives. This is the consumer set which is ready to change their buying preference, provided they have a sustainable product or service to buy. In fact, 46% of them are saying that they do buy sustainable product. They are changing the way that they're purchasing this product to make personal impact on the overall climate and environment. And consumers are in fact ready to pay on an average about 9.7% premium to buy sustainable products and goods that are sourced. So this tells us that consumers are ready to buy sustainable products. And this is, but however, are they really buying it? Can we go to the next slide? In fact, there have been a lot of successful brands. In fact, there have been a lot of successful brands. Can we have a clip? For example, Nike had launched a $110 line of brand, which was actually a very sustainable shoes made up of brown hemp fibers. However, the overall brand did not survive a year on the market, and it was not a very great successful story. Similarly, Clorox, which came up with a cleaning product that was actually 99% natural, so it had very, very low amount of chemicals in the overall, in the cleaning formula. But the product actually lost about 40% of its market share very, very soon as it was launched in the market. Philips, in fact, was one of the first company to come up with energy efficient lighting solutions. But again, the Philips Earthlight, which was the product line that was launched, did not make any significant impact on the marketplace. And finally, Huggies, which came up with a natural solution to diapers, again, something that failed to actually generate consumer interest. So firms felt that they worked too hard to make sustainability benefits as part of their value proposition and launch it as part of sustainable products, but they feel that the market does not reward. And the reason they feel is because consumers do not do what they say, or what is called as today the say-do gap. Right, so consumers say they want sustainable product, as it was quite evident in the consumer insights survey, but they are not really buying it. This is what the firms believe. However, if we go deeper down, and can we go to the next slide? If we go deeper down into the reasons why products are not being successful, we find that there are several reasons that that the firms are unable to capture. Number one is firms feel that the sustainability, they kind of overestimate the value, and they believe that they should be getting green premium for a product that may not be actually delivering the right kind of value to the consumer. A great example would be the Valspar paint line. So this was one of the first paints that was launched into the market without the additives. So very natural, very eco-friendly paint product. The flip side was that without the additives, this paint actually failed to arrest bacterial growth in a household. As a result, once you apply the paint, within a year's time, you actually start getting bad smell coming out of houses. So the product again failed terribly. So the firm, what it underestimated is that by adding a sustainable value, it undermined the functional value of the product, and hence it failed. The second reason, obviously, consumers will always do things that are right for themselves, which is go by self-interest. So self-interest was always triumph altruism. The third is that there are certain products that when we associate green or eco with those products, the perception of the consumers is that it will reduce the efficacy of the product, which is why we find that green or eco soaps being a far lesser fad among consumers. However, organic cotton, which is often associated with cotton as a product space, is quite successful. So there are certain products, when they are positioned as sustainable, they have a resonance with the customers, others they do not. But the single biggest reason which customers state why products fail to make a mark is because customers underestimate the sustainability value. And they underestimate it because of four reasons. Number one is that there is very, very little verifiable information that is available in the product. Number two, there have been evidences of significant greenwashing historically. For example, one of the products that you see here, Windex, which was supposed to be 100% recyclable plastic bottles, which was actually not true. So it was a complete greenwashing. And who could forget the famous Dieselgate scam of Volkswagen? So there is evidence of greenwashing which is there. Fourth is that there is a significant amount of information overload. So there's a lot of information, but consumers do not know what to trust. And the fifth is the dilemma of whether what I do, is it enough or not? So does it matter if I alone buy a sustainable product or services? So that's number 4. So, while these are a lot of problems to solve when we are thinking about sustainable product, for example, how a product should be placed vis-a-vis consumer expectations and the segment that I'm targeting, and also how can firms measure impact and manage a sustainable product portfolio. So while these are, certainly huge challenges for making the sustainable product space successful, but the one topic that we are going to focus today is that how can firms actually manage a sustainable product successfully? How can they measure impact as part of their entire portfolio? So with this, I will request Anne if she could. But before Anne, there's a small poll that we would want to run both before and after the webinar, so that just to get a sense about how our webinar is able to create an impact on the participants. So I could request my colleagues to start running the. So here, the question is that what is your role and your interest in sustainable product portfolio? Whether you're a sustainability professional, if you're a product development professional, are you from commercial marketing or executive leadership? So, all right. So we do have overwhelming representation of sustainability professionals, but it's also good to see a good representation from operations, marketing, and leadership. Okay. So now we have more than 70% poll now. So I'm just sharing the results here. So 78% of the participants today are from sustainability space. So that's quite heartening to see. But we also have representation from operations, about 19%, from commercials and marketing, about 11%, and executive leadership, about 11%. So with this, I will now request my colleague Anne to come and share her views on sustainable product portfolio management as a tool and how can organizations use it. So Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Sandeep, for the opportunity. Wonderful. That addressed my question. If you could put the slides on the screen. And while you do so, let me again reiterate that I'm really grateful today to PwC and to IIMA for the invitation to present the work that we do on portfolio sustainability assessment. I'm going to briefly cover what this framework is, why it was created, how it works, and then where we're taking that as a next step to develop a sector agnostic methodology. So if we go to the next slide. Oh, I've lost you. There should be a slide before that one. I was just planning to, yeah, thank you. To basically state who is WBCSD, as it may not be an organization known by everyone. So we are a global community of more than 225 world-leading businesses, and together we drive system transformation for the realization of our vision, which is creating a better world in which more than 9 billion people can live well within planetary boundaries by 2050. And together, that means we focus on accelerating the required transformation of business, the value chain, and the system in which they operate to limit the impact of the climate crisis, restore nature, and tackle inequality. And in that context, if we go to the next slide, that we have introduced a few years ago. Actually, a few years ago, a few companies have joined forces and come into WBCSD to develop a harmonized framework towards product sustainability steering. It was designed and launched to empower companies in the chemical-intensive sector to deploy sustainability management methodologies that support business leaders and their teams in making better decisions, that is, reduce the risk associated with socio and environmental impacts. It was funded by 9 companies originally. By now, it's adopted by roughly more than 30 companies. And while we published it in 2018, just last year, we updated it with guidance on circularity, further updated guidance on how to tackle chemical hazards and to make sure that the framework continue to be a forward-looking product stewardship guidance, and a specific edition as well on how to deal with innovation when you don't have all the data. But with this, let us go to the next slide and look at what it does. And there will be a bit of clicking. And I can't see your screen for whatever reason. That'll fix that. So let me. It's basically divided into 5 steps. The first step is very typical for any type of framework. We're defining the objective, the scope, and the process. Then we define the unit of reference, which is in the case of PSA, Portfolio Sustainability Assessment, product, time application, time region. And that's the combination of the 3 that it becomes the units of reference, which implies as well to define a benchmark scenario. Then it's divided into 4 main signal categories, which are compulsory, and 4 additional ones that are voluntary. That really cover the scope of social, environmental, economic impact, and most importantly, really cover the full life cycle of a product. It requires a fact-based assessment, and key elements that are mandatory includes chemical hazards, obviously, and the exposure associated with the chemicals product identified, anticipating regulatory development, and considering global conventions, sustainability ambition along the value chain, as well as environmental social performance compared to the alternative solution, therefore the importance of the benchmark, taking an approach from cradle to cradle. Categorizing the product portfolio is the really underlying principle that you cannot make a trade-off between risk and benefits. If there is a risk identified sustainability-wise, then that prevail in the product rating. And there are 3 ratings to categorize the portfolio. A means that there is at least a strong sustainability-related benefit that has been identified. B means it's neutral, so no risk, no benefits. And C means there is at least one sustainability-related challenges that is a material business risk or a serious concern that exists. And that's always related to sustainability. Then there are guidance on reporting and how to use portfolio sustainability assessment results in the framework. If we move to the last slide, thank you. That slide is about really where are we going from there. The community of practice that has developed portfolio sustainability assessment has really fostered its implementation and enabling the adoption by more than 30 companies, as I mentioned, and focusing on improvements. But with the experience gathered, we have also identified gaps with that community of practice related to data, implementation principles, and the need to move from multiple individual companies' methodology that fit into a framework to actually a more authoritative methodology. So there is also another element that's important to consider, that since it's launched in 2018, the world dynamics have significantly changed. Sustainability is mainstream. The value chain engagement has increased, and so did the value chain expectations. Similarly, with policymakers, NGOs, investors, all their expectations have increased. So we are really at the moment at the crossroads of where we need a transformation that goes beyond sector. And that calls for a methodology. That means not any longer a framework that is applicable across sector and geographies, a standardized methodology that guide company transformation. And my computer is doing weird things, which is distracting, but hopefully you still hear me. That will we will take all the experience we've gathered with PSA to really develop now cross sector, cross geography methodology that help companies reduce the complexity, transform and facilitate holistic integration of sustainability action throughout the value chain. So portfolio sustainability assessment is not going to go away. It's now the right time to really get involved in PSA, and as the deployment typically require 18 to 24 months, but Bruno will tell us more about that. And understanding the framework as this is today will be a good preparation to the broader and sector agnostic methodology that we're developing. With this, let me hand over to the other colleague, Sandeep and Bruno.
Thank you, Anne. Now I will request Bruno to share. We had the introduction on the sustainable portfolio management as a concept. Let's hear from Bruno how we can leverage that concept for decision making and from a strategy perspective. Bruno, over to you. Thank you.
You want me to share the slide, or you have them? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So thank you for PwC and IIMA for the invitation and to share our experience and learning by applying sustainable portfolio management. And I was proud to also participate to the 2 editions of the PSA. Let me first, next slide please, introduce Syensqo, which is a newly created company out of the spin-off of Solvay. Solvay has spin off in 2 separate companies, Essentials, that keep the name of Solvay, and Syensqo that take the Essentials. Next slide, please. Yeah, and just want to take the opportunity to, as we are talking about portfolio, to present what is Syensqo and the portfolio of Syensqo. We are an 8 billion euro company now. Our activities are based on 2 pillars: the materials with high performance polymers that goes in automotive, in battery materials, in green hydrogen, and materials composite for aerospace, civil aerospace, and for defense. The other pillar is consumer and resources with surfactant and polymers, namely for home and personal care, flavor and fragrance for namely food industry as well, mining reagents, and biocide. So just a diversified portfolio. Next slide, please. And let me introduce a sustainable portfolio management tool that we are using as a compass for decision making and how it works. SPM is really, next slide please, is really a strategic tool that guides our business in managing risk and opportunities related to sustainability in the value chain. And when we talk about value chain, in fact, the value chain, you write it from left to right. And in fact, you have to read it from right to left. And sustainability, circularity, biodiversity imperatives are moving up the value chain. And it creates new market signals. And we know, next slide, please. No, you can, yeah. So we know that sustainability topics are complex and interconnected and rapidly evolving with climate change, resource scarcity, societal expectation, supply chain constraint, regulatory landscape, market trends, and to name some. And SPM is really support us to capture those new market signals and embedded them in the strategy in a structured way. So into business decision and steer product and service performance to more sustainable to more sustainability, but also among other dimensions that remain paramount: performance, competitiveness, quality of the product. Then how it works, no, the slide before, sorry. How it come to us to develop such a tool? In fact, we had a question from our CEO at that time to say, what does sustainability means for our company and how sustainability is going to impact our business, our P&L. And with the intuition that true sustainable solution will deliver superior growth. At that time, we had no tool. And therefore, we have developed one based on the observation of what the society expects from a chemical company. And what they expect is in the production phase, and you see here cradle to gate, so the first left part, that we use less resources, less water, less energy, and that we reduce our environmental impact. That's one. And secondly, that we bring to the market more safer and more efficient solution. And so, and these are the two axes of SPM, so the Syensqo methodology. On one hand, we measure the environmental footprint in a cradle-to-gate perspective, from the raw material extraction till the exit of our premises. And on the other hand, we have a more social and environmental assessment of our portfolio, where we sit with the business and we assess in a very holistic way the performance, the social and environmental performance of our product. And so how it works and how we map the results. And next slide, please. So we have seen the first axis, the vertical axis that you see here. In fact, we measure the environmental impact through LCA, life cycle assessment analysis. Environmental impact that we monetize and that we compare to the value the product brings to the society. So when we measure the environmental impact that we monetize, we come with a numbers in euro per kilo or US per kilo, and we measure the value it brings to the society. And we measure the environmental impact through 21 indicators. And how the idea behind comparing the environmental cost and the value is to make sure that we do not generate €1 revenue at a too high environmental cost. And how you can read the vertical axis means if you are on the top of what we call the heat map, you have a relatively low environmental cost versus a relatively high value to the society, to the market. If you are at the bottom of the graph, you have a high environmental impact versus a low value for the market. That's the first positioning of the product. And what it brings to the information it brings to the business is that am I at risk to be substituted if I'm the bottom by a less impacting product, or do I have an opportunity to displace other products in the market because I'm very well positioned on the top of the graph? And the second axis is we assess if the product in its application is part of the solution or the challenge from a customer and market's perspective. And there we have a more qualitative questionnaire. So we tackle not only the environment topic, but also societal expectation, health and safety. And we have a questionnaire where we assess the performance of our product in the application with regard to health and safety, climate, resource, and opinion leader. And under these four main themes, we have about 28 questions. For each of them, we assess the performance as Anne-Laure presented with positive, neutral, or negative. And in fact, what gives to the market the information to business leader is, am I at risk to be selected in or selected out from the market? If I have product on the left, you can read the challenge. Maybe a product that presents hazard level, exposure to hazard chemicals. And therefore, we put this in challenge area because we have there an issue. On the contrary, if we are on the right, our product helps our customer to reduce their environmental impact, their CO2 footprint, things like that. So we have several examples on this. And the combination of these two axes gives a comprehensive position of the portfolio to the business manager. If we are in the green area solution, okay, we contribute to the social and environmental performance of our customer while presenting a favorable balance on environmental impact and value. But on the other side, in the challenge, we have a concern and we have really to think about to mitigate the risk. A third dimension that I will add is that for each blocks that you see on what we call the heat map, or darker the shading or higher the revenue at stake. So that gives the dimension. Why we are continue to assess our portfolio through the lens of sustainability year on year, because what we call business solutions, so the part that is in green, it presents a higher growth rate than the group average, plus 5%. And on top of that, recently we see that a product in application that contribute to circularity grow as a higher growth, so grow 10% higher than the group average. And that's the dynamic we are in. And this helps for us, the company, to navigate the uncertainty. And I would say that among the other dimensions that are paramount, performance, competitiveness, but on sustainability, if you navigate in the green area, you navigate in clear water and with tailwind. If you are in challenge, okay, you have navigate in rocky water with headwinds, and the likelihood that one day your business will hit the rock is high. That's in a nutshell how does it work. Last slide. And for us, we are embedding this approach in all of our business process, and it's really a great opportunity to ask new questions, that the business ask themselves new questions and get new answer in all process, M&A, CapEx, innovation, and then how I integrate those market signal, those answers in my strategy, in my procurement policy, in my business development. And it is just a tool that is not making sustainability just a compliant issue, but really a driver for innovation and growth towards more future-proof solution, in fact. And I will stop here, if you allow me, and give the floor to Professor Sugathan. And we can discuss later in the panel.
Thank you, Bruno. And now I will request Professor Anish to share his views on this topic and to take forward the webinar for us into panel discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep, Anne, and Bruno. That was a very nice introduction to what is the value of looking at sustainability strategy through the product portfolio lens. So I will, bring about a couple of interesting research findings from recent times and try to logically connect together in the management research why an approach based on a product portfolio for meeting the corporate sustainability goals makes a lot of sense. I would request the team to please share the slides. Yeah, thank you so much. So the next slide, please. That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much. So this, in a way, is the core insight when we talk about looking at corporate sustainability goals through the lens of a product portfolio. A company, if you look at, think about it, all the action, all the accounting, all the goals, all the targets of the managers and the executives are in one way or the other linked directly to the product line that they are responsible for. So it is very natural for us to think of a corporate sustainability strategy as a sum total of a product portfolio strategy. Now, of course, if you carefully notice, I said it's an approximation because corporate sustainability also takes into account the various people and processes that oversee these multiple product portfolio. So what is the advantage of taking a product-based approach? I can see from the existing research there are three major advantages that managers can derive benefits from. Next slide, please. The first one, if you are looking at the product portfolio, essentially I would say this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where all the action takes place. The first and foremost advantage of looking at sustainability goals through a product portfolio is that you can leverage your existing infrastructure. Whatever data infrastructure, ERP that exists in the company are tied directly to various processes, value chain, both within the company as well as your supplier vendor and downstream customer value chain. So for you to collect additional monitoring of sustainability variables, whether it is carbon, whether it is hazardous chemicals, like we just heard from the previous discussants, or water or any other resource that you want to target either for regulatory compliance or for your own company's internal sustainability targets, a product-based approach allows you to do what I call a plug-and-play sustainability accounting. It's easy for the staff. There is minimal retraining required. The variables are directly connected to something that is tangible. You can see, you can measure, and probably there already exists that data in the system in some other format. You just need to take it up, package it, and then present it. It also enables you to do the audits much better. As I see many of you are executives and sustainability professionals in the audience, you would have noticed that the BRSR requirements, SEBI in India, for instance, now require the top 1,000 market cap company to report their sustainability footprints through the BRSR format. And in the core BRSR reports also requires many variables to be assured, which means you have to supply assurances, which means you need to engage an auditor to look at these numbers. And again, when it's tied to your product, line existing product ERP and data infrastructure, this process becomes much more easier. The second element comes, I'm going back to Sandeep's survey results, where he was talking about the say-do gap. People say that, oh, we are willing to pay around 10% premium for a sustainable product, but in reality, they don't. But there is a little bit more nuance to that action. See-do, what we see, research shows that the see-do gap strongly correlates with the product/segment, the market segment in which that is being sold. We see, for instance, let's say cotton, apparels, organic cotton. It works in a certain segment, whereas something like a cleaning product, a chemical cleaning product, might not work well. So looking at your overall sustainability goals through the product line allows you to fine-tune. When you know that, oh, this product in this segment would likely to have a higher willingness to pay from the market, and it allows you to in turn prioritize your sustainability transition pathway. Do you want to take product A versus product B first? And how would you like to position those products? So from a pure market branding and pricing strategy, looking at products makes a lot of sense in the first place. And finally, I would like to close this. There is an overwhelming set of research which shows that a product-based sustainability strategy allows you to connect with all the stakeholders. Because if you look at a company, a product or a service is the face of the company. For the customer, that is who you are. That is what the company is, whether it's a mobile phone or is it a web app or anything. The company's face is its product or service. Similarly, for all other stakeholders, whether it is vendors, whether it is regulators, investors, your ability to engage with these stakeholders as well as communicate to them becomes far more streamlined and far more aligned if we start looking at the corporate sustainability strategy through the lens of a product sustainability strategy. With that, I would like to wrap up the research support on why a product-based approach, makes a lot of sense, and open up the discussion for a panel discussion. Now, before we jump into the panel, we also have a very quick poll. This is the second poll. We want from the audience to see to what extent, in their current role, current responsibility, whatever they are engaged with professionally in the sustainability domain, how does product portfolio based sustainability comes into play? What is the salience? What is the importance? I would request the team to please please run the poll so that, and I'll wait for a few seconds. Yeah, we have the poll live right now. While you respond, I will engage into the panel discussion. All right. So, yeah, I don't want to read the results as it is going on and influence people. Once the poll is ended, I will declare the results. Okay. 10 more seconds. All right, awesome. So we have about 60% responses, and about the highest number of responses goes to yes. We have initiated SPM and would like to improve it. The second, interestingly, is not sure of our organization's approach to SPM right now. The third highest goes to, we are not yet aligned to SPM, but we are keen to look forward. And the final one, we have one response where we see that the business stakeholders do not necessitate it in the recent future. So good. This is a very nice dipstick, and it immediately tells, at least I see from the poll results, that audience is already familiar with SPM. I also see that there is an interest to align it better, and there is also people in the audience who have heard of it and would like to see how their organization can approach towards it. Thank you so much, everyone, for response, for this response. Let me start with the first question, and I think it's it also reflects perhaps the second, third, and the fourth response question from the poll, which is a question of, is it ready for India? Whenever we talk about sustainability with executives in the classrooms with students, the number one question is, where are we? What is a reality check? What is the reality check on the market? What is the reality check on the larger ecosystem? So I would like to, open this question to any one of you who is in a position to respond. Is the Indian market ready? And do you know of any companies that have initiated action or strategies towards meeting a sustainability goal, especially through the product portfolio lens? Sandeep, would you like to take a...
Yeah, I can take it up, Professor Anish. So thank you for this. And I think as far as Indian consumer ecospace is concerned, a general misconception is that because the Indian consumer is price sensitive, they don't buy or prefer sustainable product as general compared to what we see in West. What I can share with you is that our last year's consumer survey tends to differ. In fact, the Indian consumer is as much aware, as much keen on wanting to buy sustainable products and services as much as the developed market. I think where the things get a bit different is our ability to pay price premium to purchase products that are sustainable. That's one. Second, availability of trustworthy information out there at the product stage, could be through labeling, could be through a certain right kind of accreditation, which is kind of missing. As far as success stories of sustainable products are concerned, in recent times there are a number of that one could closely interrelate. I'll bring an example of Tata Motors Kaziranga model, which is a great success story. A vehicle which is colored green, positioned as a premium product, but proceeds from that premium product are going towards conservation of rainforest. So there is a certain section of the buyer who feel very connected to that kind of product positioning, and they're ready to pay that higher price premium to ensure that it goes towards the right cause. The second, I think, example that one could closely relate is the growth in organic food category, for example, in India, right, where consumers are ready to pay a slightly higher premium, but prefer taking up products which are more healthier and more natural and organic in choice. So I think Indian consumers are as interested to buy sustainable products and services. I think the challenge could be, or the difference could be, how much price premium we pay out and our ability or the kind of information, right information that is out there for consumers to make the right choice.
Thank you, Sandeep. Good point. Willingness to pay is question. And second, what is the value that is being delivered is second. And of course, how do we credibly signal the value of the sustainability embedded in the product or service? That's very important. Very nice. And Bruno, would you like to respond to that, or I have a very good coming up? Yes.
Well, so being in the chemical sector, we are quite upstream the value chain. So when we have a credible claim after the assessment, we have a credible claim on sustainability, there is also a dilution along the value chain. So if we are enabling our customer in coating to have a greener coating for a car industry, what does it mean for the consumer that will buy a car? He will not buy a car because you have a greener coating. It's a bit different when we are selling surfactant for shampoo. For example, natural, bio-based surfactant for, and so that the fast-moving consumer goods industry can promote the shampoo as natural. Then the willingness to pay is maybe more tangible because, first of all, the price difference may be minimal, but you still have a price premium. So your customer may accept a price premium if he can pass the cost to to its customer or to the consumer. A second thing is we are always, and very seldom the people are willing to pay more, a premium. But at the end, when you have a credible value proposition on sustainability feature, at the ISO market conditions, you get the preference. Means that you increase your share of wallet without having to discount the price and so on. So you have the preference. And a third element is if I do nothing, in 3, 5, 10 years' time, am I becoming irrelevant in my marketplace because it's a question of competitive edge. If I do not invest today, what will be my position with regard to product carbon footprint of my customer, this and this feature, which will become a standard, I would say, and I will be out. That's also very important to take into account. And the speed also depends on the industry clock, for sure, of the value chain we are in.
Thank you, Bruno.
And I would,
yes.
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize what Bruno has just said. While I'm not an expert on the specific market that India is, what we see from WBCSD is that companies that are applying portfolio sustainability assessment apply that across their portfolio, which means across geographies as well. And that includes products that are targeted for the Indian market. That means it creates already there are products reaching the Indian market that are having sustainability benefit and features, and that create some competitive differentiation already. So from that perspective, I just wanted to highlight that it is already happening, and that's probably not to be undermined.
I'll just add, Professor Anish, one more thing. So in our experience, we believe that there are 4 things that a sustainable product should meet to be really successful in the marketplace. Number 1 is that if the product, apart from providing the sustainability benefit, can also provide functional benefit, it will attract customers. For example, we buy energy efficient lighting, A, because it's efficient, but B, because it also reduces my electricity bill. That's number 1. Second, we believe that nudge can go a long way to change customer behavior. And we have seen that in terms of simple things like people voluntarily giving up LPG schemes because the nudge came right from the top of the government, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is, and I think Bruno also alluded to this, is that the product that is being positioned along with the sustainability value, there should be a resonance with the customer. For example, if we believe that a product should be hard and sturdy, positioning that product as green is actually in dissonance with customer expectation, because consumers feel that anything that is green or eco, the strength or the sturdiness of that product comes down. So it should technically be in resonance with the customer expectation. And fourth is, and very, very important, is availability of verifiable information that customers can trust. Today, there is a severe deterioration of trust on brands, on information that are out there. So that is extremely important for consumers to adopt a sustainable product. So I think if these 4 thresholds are met, the product will be successful.
Thank you, Sandeep. I'll pick up from that point that you mentioned about credible signaling. Credible signaling and its and the deficiency of trust. Consumers falsely associate a functional decline the moment you have a green label, right? And in many cases, it is coming directly from the lived experiences. I mean, think about a plastic straw for drinking water versus, let's say, a paper straw. I mean, you see a functional deterioration. I mean, literal deterioration in this case. And this association can only be broken, if once, as you said, if these dissonances are taken care. Second, also, if there is credible information. So my question is, it's got to be costly, either credibly getting a credibility certification, or if you want to put out information, it needs a lot more disclosure, it needs a lot more assurances, it needs a lot more certification. So what is your views on existing set of tools and techniques for collection of information and dissemination of information? And what is your sense of the added delta cost? How much more is it going to cost, maybe from your own respective industry experiences, if I want to collect all the relevant information, get the certification, and credibly signal to my end customer that this, what you are paying, the additional premium is worth the additional functionality that you are getting from the product or service? Yeah, Bruno.
It's difficult to say about the cost. We know that at corporate level there are also some targets to decarbonize or to reduce freshwater consumption or waste valorization, and the PSA SPM crystallize a little bit all of this progress made by the company. So yes, there is an investment. And I said it's difficult now to assess, and that's the frustration of many companies, that we invest in sustainable solution, but we are not going to be paid for that. And there is also, from the regulatory, no incentive, because they are not promoting, there are not sufficient incentive for real sustainable solution with regard to other less efficient solution. And that's we are at the tipping point where, in fact, yes, we have to reflect on it. And the cost is really, it depends. Sometimes you have quick wins. Sometimes you need, our customers sometimes are really say, okay, we want to, that you are sourcing bio-based material, but we want to have responsible sourcing. Example for palm oil derivatives. So they ask that we are certified RSPO. But when you get product from palm oil derivatives certified RSPO, it costs you more than the other. Right. And are you able to pass the cost, or it is just you have to absorb the cost just in order to remain in the race? That's very difficult. On the other side, we have to acknowledge also that depending the value chain you are in, if I take the tire industry, okay, the tires will change tires model every 7 years, because you have a long period of approval on the road before you can launch really your product. So it will take time. It's also a question of timing. While, for example, for smart device, you can bring a new solution and it will be applied the next 10 months, because a new model will come. And so we are still learning on this, but I think it's worth to think about and to see really what is the value, to validate what is the value it brings to the customer or the consumer before investing, and make sure, okay, that it brings a real value. Otherwise, you may invest and get nothing in return. But as I said previously, if you do nothing and you decide to do nothing, you may lose with the time. You have to watch what your competitors are doing, or what are the new alternatives that are coming in, so that you may always see what is the position of your product versus the competition and versus a sustainable feature. And the dynamic depends from value chain to value chain. For sure, what is closer to the consumer goods, the consumer are more sensitive and willing to pay, but it's not given for each product.
You unmute, Professor Sugathan.
Yeah, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that stakeholder expectations are increasing, whether that we're talking about governments, NGOs, financial investors. The challenge that we see in the companies that are applying portfolio sustainability assessment framework and their own methodology is they need to go through assurance. They are started to be asked whether it can compare with one another solution and performance. And that's exactly the reason why we've decided to move towards the next step, which is move towards a methodology, no longer a framework, which is standardized, and that really take that holistic sustainability view to enable ultimately verification and or certification, and speak with one single language, so that the certification becomes possible and then triggers the cost versus benefit trade-off. That's what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne and Bruno. So very interesting sort of point is this, when there is a greater demand for sustainable sourcing, when there is anticipated action by multiple stakeholders, and you're seeing a change in consumer preference, maybe it should be considered as a short-term investment and not look for an immediate term return, but think of it as an investment into generating a competitive edge in a future world where your consumers are going to be more demanding, your regulators are going to be more demanding, and you are going to have competitors who will probably take your space by being more compliant and being ready for that future. So thank you so much. Now, let me ask two quick questions, one on the SPM tool and the second on WCSD. On the SPM tool, and this is also resonating with a bunch of questions that I'm getting from the audience. People are asking specific questions on products and different industries, as well as different geographies. So like we have a question, can we apply this to FMCG? This is Prashant Gupta. Can we apply this to heat pumps, FMCG consumer or chemical plants? We have another question from Mohandas, who is talking about what about fabrication, steel fabrication, and he's from Saudi Arabia. Another question similar to this, does it apply to the real estate and building industry? So while we have a good framework that is evolved from the chemical industry, what is the applicability of this approach to all the different segments that or sectors and industries that I just mentioned?
I think the question is for Anna.
Yes.
I can add this if you want.
You could definitely comment on that, Bruno, as well. Well, it's been designed originally by chemical companies for all actors in the chemically intensive value chain sectors. And the way it's currently designed, portfolio sustainability assessment, that's very much for that. But that's also the reason why we're taking that to the next step, because we have acknowledged, and Bruno, you can probably refer to your own experience testing that with suppliers, with customers, that there is a broader interest. There is different level of maturity depending on the value chain, but the interest is there. And actually, because of requirement and pledges around Scope 3, people are getting into data at product portfolio level, and the portfolio sustainability assessment is a good tool to help structure the data and get ready to some of the answers. And we are actively developing the methodology to become applicable across sectors. PSA is the good place to start for now, and to get prepared into the sector agnostic methodology that's upcoming.
Yes, precisely. And when I started, we started to work on the first framework. We were only a chemical industry around the table because we share the same approach, and the objective was to set up a common ground, common language among us. Now we have several other industries that are around it, and we know they are applying this kind of tool. Building and construction is one of them, flavor and fragrance as well, agro-food industry, FMCG. And having edited a guide, specific guide on it, we were approached by several companies, even startup, that wanted to have this kind of, startup are looking for funding, and having the stamp of, okay, we have done a sustainability assessment of our business plan, was important for them to get the funding, and means that it's robust and pragmatic at the same times. And I think Anne-Laure mentioned it. We want really, when still developing the tool, to overcomplexify it. So that's important. And for us, we see today three really is, first of all, the benefit is really to have more robust strategy, so to integrate this dimension in the strategy. And we see that at least in Europe, we have a trend to promote the green funding. So that's and the data we generate during the assessment are really very important. First of all, for reporting, but also to support the claim to the customer. Yes, that's. But saying that, I think we have to demystify the methodology and to apply it in a pragmatic matter. And what is most important for us applying the tool is to apply it in the innovation process. In the last version of the PSA, we have a chapter with regard to innovation, because this is where we will start to shift the portfolio to more sustainable solution, and to integrate sustainability at a very early stage of innovation project or opportunities.
Thank you, Bruno. Let me just add another question that I'm taking from the audience, and I think it's a very important question, especially from the Indian ecosystem. They're talking about the relevance and importance. It's an anonymous attendee. I don't know who's posing the question. It's about the impact on small businesses, MSMEs, and small companies. Both the reporting requirement, the value of the tool. And this is, as I said, important because a lot of the Indian companies, they are plugged into the export ecosystem, exporting to countries like Europe and the US. And they're part of large, supply chain, to big fashion brands, big departmental stores, and auto manufacturing industries and other manufacturing industries. So once we have these let's say in Europe, you have the CBAM, the cross-border adjustment mechanism, which means that there is going to be a differential tariff that will be applied to the exporters. So it directly comes and hits to the small exporters who are plugged into this large value chain. Many of them are afraid that they might go out of business because there is they're anticipating this additional tariff which might make them non-competitive. What are your views on this?
Who is going to answer?
Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to take up, otherwise Bruno.
Okay. No, go for it.
Okay, so I think Professor Anish, based on my experience of interacting with the mid-segment companies and probably from that the wider even the startup ecosystem, is number one, the cost of transition is higher in large organizations compared to the MSMEs per se. That's number one. Predominantly because the larger organizations carry legacy cost, they carry investments which are sticky in nature, they have higher overheads, and all of it adds to the long tail cost that they have. So one is MSME, which is which is fungible, which can take decision quicker. I think the transition cost for them is typically lower. That's number one. Second, as far as technology or the transition itself is concerned, right? Every organization you will find will weigh the cost benefits vis-a-vis the cost of transition, which means if I am moving to, let's say, solar versus paying the higher tariff, every organization, be it large or small, will look at it, right? Where I think the MSMEs tend to be slightly at the disadvantage is the scale of implementation, because larger organization can implement it at scale, they can negotiate a better tariff, they have a higher availability of capital on which they can take business calls, right? So I think the sheer size and the ability of scalable investment is what makes large organizations slightly more competitive. But even within that, the MSME segment is still at a at a fairly reasonably strong position as far as India is concerned, because if you look at Government of India regulations, be it looking at renewables, for example, the entire reason why the group captive as per se as a structure was floated, so that the smaller industrial units could come together, pool their demand together, and do the transition together. So yes, they are at a little bit of disadvantage because of the size and scale. And of course, the cost that is given out for compliance per se, which is slightly easier for large organizations. But I think by creating an ecosystem where data transfer and technology can be leveraged, it will make data a lot more cheaper. Second is that can they create communities, for example, communities through which data can be exchanged rather freely to make this, again, data quite cheaper. Third is through policy advocacy. And I think many of us try to understate this, that policy advocacy can play a strong role in terms of how we shape up the market going forward to make this entire transition easier. So I think, yes, the answer is yes and no. So it is more expensive for large organizations, but they do have the wherewithal to manage that. Whereas for smaller organizations, they have to create an ecosystem, they have to leverage technology, and they have to leverage the right kind of policy advocacy in India to make this transition happen.
Bruno, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I think that the tool, yes, for SMEs, the question is a recurrent question, because I hear at least in Europe, I do not know in India, but when we talk about sustainability for the owner of the company, because SMEs, the management is the owner of the company, they dedicate their time on sustainability from 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. When everything is out. But what I've seen I got from startup and small companies that they are very agile. And I come back to Sandeep comment. They are very agile, while in big companies there is a kind of viscosity in an inertia to move up, and it depends quite a lot about the conviction and the engagement of the top management, the maturity of the team, but also the engagement of the top management. And therefore, I'm not too worried. And keep it simple. In fact, all the PSA approach is ask new question, and better the right question, and get the new answer, the right answer. And being in a small environment with a dedicated, not a diverse portfolio, if you have the right question in mind, I think that you can really. And I am impressed by the creativity of such companies. So agile for me is one of the one of the assets that SMEs can capitalize on.
Thank you, both of you. We are now sort of coming close to the end of the webinar. We discussed multiple aspects, starting from a survey, Pan-India survey done by PwC, looking at the methodology-based approach from WBCSD and the tool which Syensqo has developed. We also had a little bit of a critical view on where it is applicable, what are the costs involved, and how it can be modified, and not just look at it as an immediate return opportunity, but as a long-term competitive edge for many industries. We also took a practical view at things that it might not be strategically valuable in all industries or all products. So one has to take a case-by-case approach towards every single case that we're talking about. Now, before yes, Bruno, you want to add something to that?
No, what we have also to keep in mind with regard to sustainability is when you apply it, is really to have in mind the value creation it brings. So right. It's really very important not to use sustainability for sustainability's sake, but using sustainability to create value. That's the motto by applying. Otherwise, you keep the people busy without outcome, without deliverables. So really, always have in mind value creation.
Absolutely second this. I'll just extend it. Either create value or help me reduce risk. So if my product or service is able to deliver that, it will be successful.
Right. Yeah, that reminds me of the two dimensions which Bruno had projected earlier, risk and market alignment. So very nice. Now, we also have a few more panelists, team members from PwC, as well as I have my co-chair, Professor Nirav. In case if there are any quick comments and observations, I would like to invite them. Joseph, Jaideep, Nirav, if you have any quick comments, feel free to unmute yourself and make the comment. All right.
Yeah, I think, Professor Anish, thank you. And that was a very insightful session from all four of you. And I was very happy to see the kind of interest that is coming from the audience. And the key message I think I'm getting is this framework is really relevant in the current market situations. There are barriers, but the barriers can be addressed through collaboration, through an ecosystem approach, by adopting technology, by leveraging startup ecosystem to bring in solutions that can address the MSMEs issues. But this is definitely a highly impactful framework that will make our planet a better place to live.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I also get a question by an anonymous attendee that we would like the recording of the webinar to be shared. So the team at IIMA, we do take care of the recording, we do an editing, and we also share a report of the transcription of the conversations that happened with the participants, as well as all the panelists. It will also be available at the IIMA Sustainability Center's website. So with that, let me hand over the platform to Sandeep for wrap up and any final comments. Sandeep, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Anish. And first of all, I would like to thank all the panelists for taking out time on a Tuesday evening. It just gets to show that you do care about this planet, society, and of course business, because as Bruno mentioned, it is about creating value and managing risk. I would also like to thank our participants, Bruno and Anne, for taking out time and sharing deep insights with us on how practically a sustainable product portfolio management tool could be implemented in our organizations. And I'm sure that each one of us is going out of this webinar a bit wiser because of their presence. I would also like to thank Professor Anish and the IIMA family for supporting this webinar, and of course everyone who made this webinar come success. We do hope that we are creating a world that is sustainable for our future generations, and every step that we take towards that is going to contribute immensely. I'm also hopeful that as a community we are going to stay connected, because I think I often gets asked this question, that what is the biggest change that we can bring in our organization, in our institution, in our communities. The biggest change that we can get among our communities, institutions, is by creating more awareness and by creating more discussions around this. Because if we are aware, if we know, we will act. So I hope that as a community we stay connected on these topics, and then have more insightful discussions and knowledge sharing in future as well. So with this, I would like to close the webinar for today, and thank you everyone for attending this.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.